Originally from Maryland, Charles Clark moved to Philadelphia to begin his writing career. He worked for several Philadelphia newspapers, eventually becoming an editor and owning his own paper, the Textile Record. His career was briefly interrupted by 2 years of military service during the Civil War. After the war, Clark gained fame with the publication of his first book. Out of the Hurley-Burley was published in 1874 under the pseudonym Max Adeler. It's a collection of humorous stories about life in Newcastle, Delaware, in the middle of the 19th century. It features hundreds of illustrations, including many by A.B. Frost. The book was widely popular in the U.S. and Britain, selling over 1 million copies. A few years after the publication of Out of the Hurley-Burley, Clark moved to Conshohocken with his family. In his final volume of short stories, By the Bend in the River, Clark described Conshohocken as, quote, where the quiet river bends to the eastward, and below where it turns sharply towards the south through the cleft the long hill range, end quote. HSMC has 4 of Clark's books. One of them, The Fortunate Island and Other Stories, contains the story of a professor and his daughter shipwrecked on a magical island stuck in the Middle Ages. The story led to a rivalry with fellow humorist Mark Twain. Clark accused Twain of plagiarizing parts of The Fortunate Island in A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. Twain, in turn, accused Clark of plagiarism. Later in his life, Clark wrote several more serious novels, including The Quakeress, which takes place in Conshohocken. These novels were not as successful as his humorous stories. In addition to writing, Clark was also president of the H. Elwood Lee Company, a manufacturer of surgical instruments founded by a former student from Clark's Bible class. Clark died in 1915 and is buried in Montgomery Cemetery in Lot R 30-33.